welcome to Part 2, Grade 11 History 7.3. Let's get started. So you can see we're going to be looking at to what extent did the new Soviet state rely on terror and coercion. First of all, we're going to look at the slide here about violence during the Civil War, and it's from Conduct Merciless Mass Terror. And as I read, the Red Terror, reading all about it. From the very outset of the revolution, the Bolsheviks faced armed opposition from their opponents of varying political hue, and by the summer of 1918 they were faced with full-scale frontal civil war and widespread peasant revolts. The Bolshevik state repressive actions intensified as a result, as did the rhetoric of terror. The assassination of Moisei Urkitsky, the head of the Petrograd Cheka, and an attempt on Lenin's life on the same day, August 30th, led to the official declaration of the Red Terror on September 5th. We saw that earlier, and it was in response by the social revolutionaries to the execution of 350 of their members. Concentration camps would be used to isolate class enemies, thus the joke about seeing Siberia from the basement of the Lubyanka prison. And the concentration camps would be used to isolate class enemies, and all persons concerned in any way with White Guard organizations, conspiracies, or uprisings were to be shot. The victims of such measures would be named in the press. The tone was set the day after the terrorist attacks with the party's central newspaper, Pravda, announcing the class murderer of the bourgeoisie must be crushed. The decree establishing the terror identified the Cheka as the institution to which primary responsibility for conducting this campaign of violence would devolve. The decision to entrust the operation of the terror to the Cheka's 3- and 5-person boards, rather than the courts, specially created for counter-revolution, the revolutionary tribunals as they were known, signified, as Matthew Rendell has noted, the triumph of revolutionary terror over revolutionary justice. Now, as we move forward, we can see that Mike Carey also interprets this, that we can see violence during the Civil War as a result of war communism, and the growing conditions of food scarcity drastically worsening over the course of the First World War and Russia's Civil War drove further conflict. In the countryside, the Bolsheviks struggled to establish a dictatorship over food supply that eased the hunger in the cities, created an atmosphere of social war of the cities against the countryside, and especially against the well-off peasantry, known as kulaks, who were accused of hoarding grain. The policy of taking surplus grain by force, driven by desperate conditions of famine, and in turn exacerbating such conditions, making them worse, was often accompanied by terrible atrocities. Now, both sides, as you can see here, the whites are shown burning the crops in a poster by the Bolsheviks. Over here, this is a poster created by the whites against the reds and their attacks and terror. Now, this terror was both white and red. It grew as a deliberate policy from above interacted with collective action from below, while class conflict, exacerbated by local factors such as food scarcity, rivalry between ethnicities, nations, and regions, and opportunistic banditry. Note that the Cheka, one of its roles was to stop banditry. So let's take a look at these two posters. To what extent are they true, or are they maybe exaggerating what's going on, because of course that's the nature of propaganda? Well, let's take a look at what's happening in the historical record for the poster here against the Cossacks. Conduct merciless mass terror on the Cossacks of the Don, 1919, the second poster. Here I quote from an actual order from the Org Bureau, rather than the entire Central Committee, which was formulated on January 24th, and the circular, and it reads, recent events on various fronts in the Cossack regions are advanced to the heart of Cossack settlements and demoralization among the Cossack forces, compel us to give party official directions on the nature of their work in establishing and consolidating Soviet power in the specified regions. Considering the experience of a year of civil war against the Cossackry, we must recognize the only proper means to be merciless struggle against the entire Cossack elite by means of their total expiration. No compromises, no halfway measures are permissible. Therefore, it is necessary to conduct mass terror against wealthy Cossacks, extirpating them totally, to conduct merciless mass terror against all those Cossacks who participated directly or indirectly in the struggle against Soviet power. To the middle Cossackry, it is necessary to take all steps that guarantee no further attempts on its part to rise against Soviet power. 2. Confiscate grain and compel storage of all surpluses at designated points, both in terms of grain and other agricultural goods. And then it proceeds from there.